Welcome to Business Cake. In this conversation, Patrick and I are going back and forth. We're talking about what we are building. We're talking about the practicality of culture, understanding the phase that you are in. So within Business Cake, we discuss the 4 phases that we say a business, company, and idea is. What are the 4 phases it takes to reify and make real your ideas? Very quickly, they are imagine, initiate, iterate, and implement. And each of those 4s have different characteristics, different things that it takes. But those 4 things, if you can identify where you are in it and how you're building, then it'll help you know what you need to drop, what you need to keep. For instance, culture is your practice. It's the way you're thinking, the way you're doing things. It's too early to say this is what my culture is when you haven't even started. You're still in an ideation and imagination phase. But you can have organizing principles, things that you say, hey, this is how we want to do things, and you go down that path. But your culture is down the line when you're saying, okay, let's scale, let's take this to an implement stage, and then you realize, okay, like let's look at these values that we have, these decision points, and we go back. So it's a really practical thing. There's a point in your work, in your creative process, where it will be good to reflect. And there's a point where it's too early to reflect. So I think we dive into, I guess, practicalities of this. We touch on, as usual with Patrick and I, a few different things. But it is what I hope is an insightful conversation for you. A little of business, a little of cake. I like the, hold on, just while we're on this. So project management, we said Randy. You said time management. Because I think let's just go ahead and
goal setting. Robert Mallon.
Okay.
My business coach.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you've got the 4 eyes.
Randy. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of big picture, which, like, if you're going to be doing those things, then time management, project management, those things help. What about one, like something like giant?
Oh yeah, there's a lot we could go through. Team voices or, communication. Like one of my favorite ones that they have is communication, where you're framing a conversation and you go up to somebody and say, I'm ready, I need to have a conversation, but it's a collaborative dreaming conversation, or it's a critique conversation. And so it helps the other person know, or it's a care conversation, like I just need to vent. And so the other person knows how to engage you.
Yeah. Like that kind of stuff's helpful.
That's simple.
That would be, so that's probably just on communication. That may be one that we can also just revisit, is have those kinds of, whether or not it's giant or not, but it's about communication. It's like
it's more about people than like reifying, though.
Yeah, but it gets into the culture piece, where the way that you are thinking and behaving and talking is how you are getting things done, or how you're not getting things done. It's how you're building. And I know for like Sebastian and I in Sandgrain, if you were to come to us and say, what's the culture that you guys are creating in your small business? Then I would say, I have no idea. Like, what does that? That doesn't matter to me. But you go to somebody in a corporate setting, and you say, "What's your culture?" Then it's like they would say, "Well, this is our culture," and they have more of not an understanding, but it like fits more to talk about culture when you're talking about a larger company. But it's just as important, because at the core of it is, how are you getting things done? How are you talking? How are you thinking and planning and doing those? Like, that is the way you are doing and behaving is your culture. And so then if you started asking pointed questions about Sebastian and my communication, or how we get then you would start to unearth, well, this is when somebody is stepping into your company and starting to work with you, this is your culture,
Right.
You value pace over urgency or something. It's like patience is really important for you, not this other stuff. So that's
one of the most frustrating things for me is when I have something that I want to talk about, and so I initiate a conversation and I bring it up to someone, and it's like I feel like the spotlight is either on this thing in me or this thing objectively, outside of me that we're talking about. And then they start talking about their own life and process, and in a way that's not like helpful, and it's like the spotlight is now on them.
Yes.
And that is so annoying, to where it's like, you've just proven to me like you are not a helpful resource. But part of it is framing it like I'm talking about with this. Okay, so I'm just thinking through that, but framing it where it's like, this is the kind of conversation I want to have. And basically saying, don't make it about yourself, please, for the next 15 minutes. Like, I need it to be about this other thing that we're dealing with.
Yes. Yeah. Just listen.
No, I think you're right. Yeah. And you and Sebastian do have a culture, though, because you build it on the back porch. That's kind of some of the rhythms that you've built into. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's much more, I would say, relationship based or identity. Like, what are things we are curious about? What are things we want to do? Not what do we think is going to go make money? It's like, what do we want to create? And then you follow that. You follow the fun. We never say that. That was, we don't do that, and we never say it.
As a 7, I just have so many problems with that.
But isn't that what a 7 does in the Enneagram? Is they follow fun and avoid pain?
Right. But I found that to be, if you do that, like, you're not going to have fun, and that's what I have the problem with is, sure, I tried that and it doesn't work. So that's why I like saying it differently.
Finding the path of joy encompasses not avoiding pain.
Well, I think joy speaks to a longer term fun. It speaks to more purpose. Like, you build things, it's got substance. Like, fun can be, it's stupid. It's like one night, you know what I mean? It's just like has such a short fuse on it that it's like, when something's fun, when it's over, it's not helpful anymore. I think if you're building something out of joy, there's more of a long-term approach to like this pursuit of what's being built.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do want to jump back to culture stuff, but before I do, on that, fun for me, I've had to intentionally learn to have fun and to be silly in the moments. I can at different other points. I think you and I, there's a silliness that can happen where we just start cracking up and laughing. But I am so intent on building and doing something for the long term that I miss out on what's happening around me, or enjoying that and really being able to soak it up. And so I found myself a few years ago, somebody would say, well, what's going on here? I'd be like, well, how's Rackspace? Rackspace it's really fun. right now. Like it's fun. And I started using fun a lot, but I think some of that is my own. I almost avoid it sometimes because I don't think it is productive or helpful. And so for me, I've had to embrace fun.
Yeah, it's funny because you have had to learn that in order to incorporate it, whereas like I've had to learn to unincorporate it because of it, you know. So
yes.
Because if you ask me like, why do you want to do that? I'd be like, it's because it's fun. And then I feel either my dad or my former bosses looking at me with such disapproval of like, yeah, you just like fun, you know? And it's like, there's something about that is true. And there's something about that that's fine. But I have to get out of the Enneagram 7 if I'm going to have a good family or have a good marriage or build a good business or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get out of only focusing on the long term and make sure you smell the roses. Yeah.
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 Yeah. In the Enneagram world, be the 5-ness. Do you see that though when it comes to a small business and culture? If you were to say to somebody, what is the culture that you're building here? Does it resonate, or are there better ways to ask that kind of question to get to what the point is? I don't know, like what environment are you actually working in or creating or building, or what's important to you? What do you value?
So the framing is like if you're walking into a team or a business and you're trying to find out what their culture is like. That's the question?
Yeah.
I would probably ask it differently. I'd probably say, what's important to you? What's important to your boss? You know, ask those kind of questions and see how they respond. Because then you'll start to understand, like, first of all, are those things aligned?
Yeah.
Do they know what's important to their boss? Or how do they feel about it? Because a lot of that is the culture.
Yeah.
So less direct.
It's kind of like seeing what you can unearth with one of those questions. Do you challenge your boss? That would.
Yeah. Do you feel the freedom to speak truth to your boss? To share your actual opinion? Yeah. And I think sometimes if you go straight in for culture, people are going to give you their keywords or like their foundational pieces or whatever about their culture. But that doesn't mean that that's actually their culture. That just means that's what they say they want to be their culture. You know,
it's aspirational, not actual necessarily.
Yeah. One of the things my business coach is taking me through right now, which I've done 5 or 6 times over the course of my life in different coaching environments, is unearth the core values. And so everyone's method is a little bit different of finding your core values. His is like you look at 60 and narrow it down to 15, and then you put those in order and get the top 10. But one of the ways I did it before is where you build your story and your timeline first, and then you look back at the decisions you made and why you made those decisions. Because that guy's point is your core values are what you actually do and what you believe in. That's why you made that decision, not what sounds fancy on a page. And I think they both, one can be aspirationally a core value, and that's fine.
Right.
But this other guy was like, show me your core values. Don't tell me about them. Let me see where they happen in your life. And so I think that's part of the culture thing, is like, don't just tell me what you think your culture is, like, show it to me.
Yes. That one seems more grounded. It's based more in maybe identity, reality, the identity of your company, the identity of you. What do you actually value based off of this decision that you took, or this painful thing that happened in your life and you had to like move through it, or not be defined by it, or I don't know what, but
right.
It's like what became valuable to you truly. Yeah, I think the more practical it is, the better. I and even
Culture?
I think, yeah, like the more it has to be practical, it has to be able to be practiced, and not something that is um just aspirational, or because then I think that's the thing, when you look back and say, well, what actually happened, and you're getting concrete examples of how you made a decision, how you applied something, and then that gives people a precedent to be able to say, this is what I can also do. It's not the same situation, but I can practice it out in this way.
Yep.
And that I think is, yeah, important.
Yeah. That primarily is going to take place in like work teams, right? Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, probably primarily within work teams, but I think also within, it's like I think there's probably a time to reflect or building those things in. Because if I am where we are with the distillery right now, this is not the time for us to say, let's look back. Let's see how we've made decisions so far, and like what is our culture? Like, to try to define our culture right now is so it's premature,
right?
Because we're it's like we need things. Like, I mean, I could tell you there's some principles that I think are important that we're trying to do things by, and that's probably but whether or not we actually will build by those principles or not, I think is a different.
Well, I think you could have guiding principles. Yeah. Like when it comes, like these are the way that we're going to make decisions. These are the things we're going to value over time. I think that's absolutely necessary. But yeah, culture is probably too early. If you had a team of people that work together, maybe, if you were like 6 people, you'd have to have that defined, because I think culture relates to the word polity, not policy, but polity is like, what do you expect and what do you get in interacting with the people in this group? And the expectations of that is where culture comes from, I think, and sits. I'm sure Wendy Brand would have a lot to say about this, but that's what I think about with culture is expectations on people and freedom to move about the cabin, or are you expected to stay in your seat, right? And the pilot does not want you to be moving about the cabin.
Right.
And so if you're on a work team and you feel like you don't have the freedom to get up and roam around, that's going to be really constricting, and that's your culture.
Yes. There's this story of Jeff Bezos, who in the early days of Amazon, they needed desks as they were growing, and they went and priced out some desks. Somebody on the team did, and it was hundreds of dollars for desks and chairs and all this stuff. And he was just, we're not going to do that. And I think they went and just found a like this place that would sell them a bunch of doors, and they took the doors and just made desks, and it became part of the frugal nature. Like they said, we are not going to spend money on this stuff. We need the money for other things. Let's do something that's just functional and frugal, and let's do it. I think that's an example of, you're kind of discovering the culture as you're going. It's like, what is necessary, what's urgent, what's important to us. Well, not buying a fancy desk is important to us. We want to spend that money in something else, and so we are going to just make our own. And that resourcefulness, frugalness, has become part of what Amazon does. But I mean, I think those kinds of decisions happen a lot. I'm kind of curious in like the different groups that you've worked with and worked for. and then, I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting, like the refrigeration company, where you kind of stepped in at an inflection point for them, where yeah. So this is where we were. I was saying something, and then I hit the mic, and it unplugged and it stopped the recording.
Okay.
Now we're back. It's just I've been thinking about practicality. I think this is the core of it. And so talking about culture, it's like that can be a super impractical thing when somebody is trying to just build their idea, build their business, reify, whatever that is happening. And so I was asking you, I don't know the best example to pull from, but I would think like when you have a company that's gone through something, one of having an inflection point where they are a smaller group, and then all of a sudden, you land a few big clients and you start to have to scale or change. And this is kind of what some of Elizabeth was talking about. Like, what is the magic that you want to keep going? What isn't? How do you change what you're doing? What do you know what to change, what's not? What are your values? Like, what's important during that time? And I think some of it you just have to figure out as you go. But I don't know if you have any stories or examples of what you've seen where, I don't know, maybe somebody was operating outside of what their values were and it was incongruous with where they were, or they had a value and they're operating in it and it just didn't fit anymore. And it was needed to be reset, or anything else.
Yeah, I think that word congruous is really key, because people want to know, and I think this is the point of culture. People want to know what they're going to get when they interact with you. And we're talking about somebody who's in leadership in some capacity, right? And so if you bring somebody on, they want to know that you're going to be the same person when they come to interact with you. And they want to know that if you say, hey, our core value is an open door policy, or our core value is bad news travels fast, so bring it up quickly, and you do, that you have the permission to do that without it coming back to you, or whatever the case may be. And so, yeah, I think I have seen several instances. It's actually more common that there's misalignment instead of alignment, where people say, hey, this is our core value. There are easy ones to get, like urgency. Sure, that just means everything needs to happen right now. I understand why they have that core value, that one company, but it's hard because you have to be able to put that core value in its place and not let it rule everything. Because if you run off of urgency, then that is not only your core value, but it becomes like, your main identity. And so I think from like the work that Elizabeth does, or maybe the work that Wendy does, where they're helping people, and I think a good coach would help people be more congruous with who they say they are, who they want to be, and who they actually are, and where they're going. Those things need to be lining up properly. And I think that could be like an individual contributor, or a leader in a team, or a business owner. I think in all of those things, it really matters. And I think that's one thing about reifying, like taking an idea and making it real, is a lot of times people will lie to themselves and trick themselves. There's a lot of incongruity where, like, I really want this. I really want to do this thing. But they don't actually, because they never actually do it,
Yes.
And so that's hard when people get stuck there, because, okay, maybe they're just imagineers, and that's what they're going to do, is just keep reimagineering everything, reimagining it. I was trying to mix engineer and imagine together.
Disney, that's what they call their workers, are Imagineers.
Okay. So,
anyways.
Like I think that's awesome because there's a place for people like that. But it's like if you have an idea that you are trying to do, what I like about goals is the fact that you draw a line, maybe not in the sand, but something a little more permanent.
Paper?
I mean, just like on the concrete. But that's just, I don't know. But a line in the sand can just get washed away so easily. It's like so temporary. It does not make any sense. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing about having a benchmark. You can say, my goal is to have made progress on this. And I think that's what's beautiful about people is people have the ability to take an idea and make it real. And so anyways, I kind of went off on that, but I think the congruity is really important between somebody saying, hey, I want to do this one day. I want to build this company. I would love to open a coffee shop. I can't tell you how many people have said it to me. It's like, well, why don't you do it? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
Do you really want to, then you'd be doing something like that. But I think most people are just like, that seems like a cool, fun project. But they're not serious about turning it into something real. So yeah, congruity. Coming back to congruity, absolutely, so many examples.
I think the congruity, I love how you're talking about it. I think when somebody is stuck with that imagined place, whether for whatever reason, like people that are saying, oh, like I would love to have a coffee shop, I would never be able to take that risk. Whatever that excuse is, I think it's easier to just look at that and say, well, what is reality? Reality is this is not where you will reify. But where are you doing that right now? Because I think it can happen in a variety of ways. I think we can become better at it as well. Like one of the first times I did this with Maria is we wanted to change our backyard. And so we talked about it for a while and didn't do anything. And finally we said, all right. And I sat down and we drew it out on a piece of paper. What do we want to happen to our backyard? And we envisioned it. And all of a sudden, that was the step we had to take. And we found somebody, we got the materials, we put it together, we did the work, and we changed our backyard. And like we had this idea and then we made it real. And I think that a lot of times people they're just like, oh yeah, it would be awesome to change our backyard, to start a coffee shop, to run this business, for me to work on for myself and not for somebody else in a 9-to-5 or whatever their ideal vision of whatever they think is going on. But it's not lining up with what's actually happening. It's not lining up with who they are. And you can change that. You could write it down on a piece of paper. You can say, what is it going to take for me to get to that step if I'm serious about it? But if you're not serious about it, that's fine. Stop talking about it though. Like, what are you actually doing?
Well, you could just change the way you talk about it and say, I like talking about the idea of owning a coffee shop instead of like,
yes. Yeah.
I really want to. And so, yeah. And I think a good coach or consultant, and that's where I found, my lane to be sometimes, is coming in to find out where people are on that process, have a mirror, because there are no answers. When people think that you're going to bring them something on a piece of paper that's going to change their lives and like make everything better, it's not. A lot of it is your choice. It's the leader's choices, really, that what it comes down to, and the hard work that person's going to do about their backyard, right, or whatever the case may be. So bringing the mirror, say, look, right here, this is the problem right now.
Right.
It's in this little window. And then they look in the mirror and they see themselves. They're like, okay, what do I need to do? Right. And that's a lot of times that's why I got my business coach too, because I realized my time management is whacked. And he had a really great mirror. And then I have material that I'm working through, and it's good to bring more congruity. And then I'm aiming at something and I hope to hit it. And so once I do that in one area, I can do it in culture. I can do it in my backyard. I can do it in my garage, like whatever it needs to happen. That process of going through the 4 eyes is becomes something that you're better at. And then I think you can get to like the second or third one and realize, I don't want to do this. This isn't a project I want to undertake. Great, let's abort and move on.
Yeah. Or find somebody that does want to take it, and then you can exit it to them.
Yeah,
they can go make it great. Yeah.
Just give it to them. One of the things I think that is a non-negotiable is valuing people. I think it's interesting, companies or teams or other people that don't value people, because I think one of the things that you and I have said is like profits are non-negotiable, right? Like you got to make money. That's great. But I think another one is valuing people. And that has to be somewhere in culture, and that has to be somewhere in the way that you live, because people end up burning bridges, creating silos, and it's like, if you're not good at valuing people, practice it, get better at it, like find a way to change that so that you really do value people. Because they will work for you better, but number two, they'll be able to get you farther when you need something. So I don't know. That's just another thought ruminating in the back of my head. Is like, value people, treat them well, give them decency, respect, dignity. It'll pay off.
Yeah. That seems like that for me it would need to be part of anything that somebody's doing. But I know that that's not the case. Not everybody looks at it like that. But I agree. I agree with that. That I would say that's a non-negotiable as well. And it's a hard one to practice, because I think that's where, if you're up against deadlines, or you have a project you're really trying to get off the ground or whatever, and you're like, well, value people. It's like, well, what do you value more? Getting this thing done, this thing out, making this sale, doing whatever that thing is, or this person, and that gets very difficult.
Well, for sure. And the reifying process has a lot of friction and heat to it. And so it's going to hurt, and it's going to be high stakes at some point. But I think you can still get the project done or get the sale made in a way that values people. It's easier not to, because it takes more time and more effort to try to value people along the way. And so it's kind of lazy just to be like, yeah, well, you work for me and I don't care. You need to stay later and get this thing done. Like, that's just laziness.
And one of the things you kicked off this conversation with was talking about framing the conversation. I think that's a great way to value somebody, to value yourself, to know what you need out of a conversation if you're going to go have that, or when somebody's coming to you, to recognize the kind of conversation they are wanting to have and to reframe it so that it can say, okay, well, let's have, if they're super stressed about this deadline and they're freaking out and they're coming to you and you think they want you to help them meet the deadline, but really they're just trying to vent and get everything out because they feel pressure of it. Like, that could be a very misaligned conversation that you're having, and you think, I nailed it, I helped them solve it, and they walk away thinking, they didn't hear me.
Right.
And I just wanted to be heard. Like, I knew how to get it done. They don't respect my ability to get the thing done or whatever. Not that that's happened to me. I'm fine.
Today, yet.
Exactly. So,
did you want me to go into that, or you want to save that for another episode later on?
No, I think go into it.
Okay.
Actually, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, go into it.
You sure you want to do that?
We were talking about it as a toolbox, right? So we're gonna we're working on a series essentially where we will say, hey, here are really practical things that you can do as you're building and reifying. So I think if you want to...
I think most of the conversations that we've had so far have been with people getting their stories as they build something. And so one of the things that you and I had talked about is building a toolbox series where we have specific guests come on to provide specific tools in the podcast that people could listen to and then go apply that. So yeah, we can save that teaser for that series.
Yeah. That'd be good. One of the things with this is and we've talked about this some, but I forget what people call them, the advice entrepreneurs, people who like make it their business selling advice.
Okay.
And I think that is not what we're doing.
Okay.
One, both of us are in the trenches building things ourselves, working and practicing this stuff. And we're not building this academy of entrepreneurs.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we're building business, and we're interested in what's worked and what people are doing. And then here's something for you. And if it's valuable, apply it and use it and practice it. And I think it's not we have the 7 secrets to success on this. And
yeah, I don't think we're going to start
$59
an
academy.
You can still pay $59 on our website. Just go to build.network and it'll be on the donate page. But we aren't going to start an academy. I think we have found people along the way that have had helpful things that you and I have both appreciated. And I think that's where the Toolbox series is coming from. Is like, all right, here's a cool tool. This isn't comprehensive, and sure, it leaves out a lot of other stuff, but it's a cool tool.
Yeah.
Cool tools.
And it may work. But don't try to use a hammer to cut down a tree.
Do we have to stick to the cake analogy?
Oh yeah. Don't try to bake a cake. Altitudes matter. So if you're in Denver,
don't try to
you're
beat
using the
eggs
same
with this spatula
recipe that I'm doing. Okay,
that's true. That's a good one.
Analogy.
I like that. No, I like that. That one's funny. You got to change the what is it, flour or something? I don't even know.
Yeah, just ratios of your recipe. You can't. It'll change the consistency. You're gonna get a different cake if you just stick to the recipe.
That. Yeah. It's good analogy.
Thanks. Yours was good too. What was it? It was about beating eggs.
Oh, yeah. If you're going to beat eggs, don't use a spatula. Use an egg beater. Although I don't even know who has an egg beater, or maybe a whisk is what people use, or a fork. You don't have an egg beater.
Yeah. Well, you have
You have an actual egg beater in your house?
Yeah, we do. we actually do use it when we're cooking. What?
Wow. I didn't realize those were still around.
Yeah, where it's like you have the removable like spinny things, and you stick them up there, and you like squeeze
a cooking show.
It's not the one you want to listen to because I cannot describe it. But yeah, we have one.
Oh, that's awesome.
We have a lot of gadgets. Well, anything else that we wanted to hit on this one?
Well, I think I'll just call out the work that you're doing with Etla probably, and the fact that you have a meeting coming up soon, because I think you've been doing a lot of work to get the right financial model built so that people can participate with you. And then here's the fun part is like, you're putting it before people that have a chance to absolutely reject you or to join. And so where are you with all that?
I am in a good place with it. I think it's been a little over a year, and I have been at some points I'm not committed to this idea of specifically of raising funds, of saying I'm going to go to investors and find people that are going to buy into this and build with me. I've gone I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm not excited about doing it. I am, and I've been all over the map with that. I think where we are, part of it was fit and finding just that idea of this is not going to fit for every kind of investor. There's investors where this will be a good fit, and those are the ones you want to find. And so I'm having conversations. I've had conversations, and some of them just didn't fit, and that's okay. So I think when I think about this of June 6th and it coming up, we found it just things are fitting. So the location where we're doing it, the restaurant where we're going to have this, my younger brother Dan is helping form and put the deck together, the agenda for it, the look and feel. Like all of this stuff matters. Our mezcal brand, we're positioning it as a premium mezcal, and so that's gone into our label design. That's gone into how our bottle looks. That's gone into like the feel of our bottle. Like when you pick it up, it feels weighty, which is important. For all of that. And so this is like we take the same thing here. So I get excited about that. Like all the details matter and coming in, and then what are the story? How do we want to tell this story where it communicates who we are? And so we have video that we took of the distillers sharing their stories, who they are, different things when we were in Oaxaca. And so it's like, we've got to bring that in. Like that is such a key part of what we were wanting to do, is put distillers front and center and have people like experience who they are. And then because this mezcal, this rum is such a product of them and their culture and the dirt that they work with and all of that. So we're bringing that up, and I get excited about those things. And I think for the people that this resonates with, that this fits with, they're like, yes, I want to be part of that. The other key piece to it that I'm excited about now that I work building out these financial models and is just seeing that, okay, this can make money. And I want to, people that invest, I want to make them money.
Oh yeah.
And I get excited about that, of saying, okay, this idea that we had and setting it up in this way is viable, and there is a return, and we can actually do it. So I think a lot of ethereal things that I had that were not concrete are starting to get nailed down, and that is exciting to me. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Where are you on the, I mean, because overall as a business, you're on some point of the 4I process. But more on the side of like investors, where are you in that process?
So imagine, initiate, iterate, and then implement. I think where I am would be in the iteration phase, where we have something that is a good product. We've got story, we've got brand, we have these elements, and it's a matter of now having conversations, feedback, and I sat down with one of the guys who's going to invest a couple of weeks ago, and just it wasn't set that he was going to. So we sat down to have the conversation, and we ended the conversation. He's like, I'm in. Here we go. And so the first one's down. The first one's like in the hopper, and we're good. And now it's great. We have a target that we want to hit. Let's go do it. So I think that's the iterate stage.
Yeah.
Getting feedback, sharpening it.
I think it's cool to break down your endeavor into the different pieces. Cause like overall you've got, a spot where you are, and probably that's got its own journey, but yeah, that's awesome. Well, I hope it goes well.
Thank you.
I'm sure you will learn a lot no matter what.
Yes. I'm an extreme rookie. Always learning. That's what I mean by that.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts about that, but we'll just move on.
Yeah, we don't have to dive into it. Great. All right. Well, we'll wrap this. And I think the next episode we're doing is a recap pod.
Yeah.
So I don't know who we're going to have yet. We'll have somebody on this who's going to help us recap. So some good ones to chop up.
It'll be great.
For sure. All right. Business Cake is produced by Sound Ops. The music is written by Philip Cusius. And this is hosted by Will and Patrick. If you enjoyed it, please rate us 5 stars wherever you find your podcasts.